like this.
Hello, friends and family, and welcome to Coaching for Success. Set big goals and do big things, brought to you by the PEACES Collective. My name is Shannon Dale Stott, and I am your host for this evening, and I'm so glad that you have joined us. My job is to keep us running in a lovely fashion. People are already vying to get up on here and answer your questions about coaching and how you can set your goals, how you can do big things with your life through coaching. So if you are here, what I would love for you to do is on the side, if you look at the chat, to your right-hand side, there is a space for you to type things in. You can tell me where you're from just to make sure that those things are up and running. You can let me know that you're excited to be here. We already have Jessica and Lorraine up here with us, and you're more than welcome to stay. And Sophia and Berwick, who is M, thank you so much for being here. I might as well go ahead and start. Thank you, Wanda, for being here. Yes, Bermuda. I'm so glad that you're here representing Bermuda. I'm so happy you're here representing Maryland. I myself am in Harwichport, Massachusetts this evening, a far cry from Austin, Texas, where I usually see you all from. But nevertheless, let's get into it. You are here for Coaching for Success, setting big goals and doing big things. Today, we're talking about how coaching can help you grow into the person you need to be in order to achieve the goals you have set for yourself. So our discussion today has been thoughtfully crafted by PEACES Collective. A coach at heart, Ikrama Mohammed is the executive director of PEACES, a local handcrafted accessory and home goods company whose goal is to create sustainable markets and systems for handmade and recycled goods. PEACES Collective also contributes to human development through experiential learning, economics, and education. Please join me in welcoming Ikrama Mohammed to tell us more about the PEACES Collective.
Greetings, everyone. How's everybody this evening? Thank you all for coming. I just want, I'm really excited to get to this exciting panel to talk about this exciting topic, but I just would like to take a few minutes to talk to you a little bit about the PEACES Collective and a little bit about what we're about. We are a 501c3 organization, and we are a platform for makers and handcrafters to sell all sorts of items, handbags, handmade soaps, clothing, decor, and then we give a portion of our proceeds to the community to do programs such as the one we're having tonight, Wisdom, Wellness, and Wealth. Our goal for the Wisdom, Wellness, and Wealth event is to help raise consciousness and to inspire people to action. And we're very, very glad that our coaches have agreed to do that with us tonight. So we started this organization as a collective because everything that we have accomplished as a people has been done together as a collective. And as we think about the future in this time that is really fertile for change, it's time for us to look at changing and shifting our thinking to going from the I to the we, because the we is where all of our power is. So that's going to be a challenge because changing thinking is something that is hard to do because we are people who become comfortable with our habits. But as we know, it's necessary for us to change. Anything that does not grow and change is dead. So to go from thinking from I to we have to think new, and we have to get comfortable with that. And our talk tonight is about coaching for success, setting big goals, and doing big things. I like that, doing big things. So I read a quote once that said, set a goal so big that you can't achieve it until you grow into the person who can. And although I'm not an expert on this subject, I think that's what coaching is really intended to help us do. I believe at its best, coaching is more than an occupation or an industry for profit margin, but an example for putting back the human connection that is missing or minimized in a society that is growing more and more competitive and materialistic. So that connection is caring about people and helping each other be our best selves. But again, I'm not the expert, and thankfully we have experts here tonight who are going to share more with you, and we thank them for their generosity. I'd like to end with a quote from Martin Luther King, which says, "Everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love." So I want to thank you all for being here again tonight, and I pray that you enjoy and that you are inspired to action. Peace and love.
Thank you so much. The PEACES Collective reminds us that we come from a community, with a history of making things with our hands. The hands that create physical goods are the same hands that shape and create our lives. Joining us to discuss how coaching can act as those guiding hands are a few wonderful people. Sophia Casey, who has been named a top transformational coach by USA Today and who is a corporate trainer for several leaders, has for more than 30 years served as an agent of change for followers around the world, being featured in Success Magazine, on CBS and NBC, Fox News, and SiriusXM Radio. Thank you for being here, Sophia.
Grateful to be part of the conversation. Thank you, Shannon.
Of course. We also have Berwick Mahdi Davenport, aka M, who is the CEO Soul Focused Group. He is a social justice anti-racist facilitator with more than 30 years of experience. Mahdi coaches, facilitates, and mentors thousands of leaders from all over the globe. Thank you for being here, M.
I'm glad. Thank you for having me.
No worries whatsoever. Jessica Lightbourne created the Bermuda Coaching Network in 2017. As the network CEO, she is committed to spreading awareness in Bermuda about the power of coaching and the impact it can have in your personal life and work life. Jessica has worked with people from all walks of life as a success and executive coach. She has lived in the UK, Spain, Canada, and Cuba, and through these experiences has grown a passion for creating cultural competence wherever she goes. Thank you for being here, Jessica.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. We also have Lorraine Phillips. Lorene Phillips is the founder of Clarendon Wallace, the British School of Etiquette, Bermuda. She is a well-established reinsurance executive who helps executives and rising leaders achieve higher levels of career satisfaction with an emphasis on leadership, development, career transition, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Thank you for being here, Lorraine.
Lovely to be here.
Yes. Y'all, okay, so we're going to start with a question for everyone. I'm going to ask you in the chat to go to the chat. Go ahead and type the answer to this question. And that question is, can you all, including you in the chat, give us a piece of advice that was given to you that you still go by today? And so while that's going on in the chat, I'm asking all of you the same question to get us started. Em, I'm going to just shoot it over to you, and then you can shoot it to someone else. But a piece of advice that you've been given that you still go by today.
Piece of advice my grandmother who raised me gave me was, your word is your bond. You cannot go any further than your word. So make sure you keep your word good. So all my life, I've worked to keep my word impeccable. I won't tell you I'm going to do something if I can't do it.
Okay. In the chat, we also have love others as you want to be loved. Jessica, what about you?
My family motto from my father was simply, do what you got to do when you got to do it, and do it well. And I love that because it's not about perfection. It's just doing what you got to do and doing it well.
Absolutely. And Sophia, what have you got?
Play more.
Ooh, play more. Do you want to tell us who gave you that piece of inspiration?
Well, the inspiration comes from, having a career where I had the mindset to grind, that grinding equaled success. And thankfully for coaching, I shifted my mindset to actually start to think about work and entrepreneurship as a playground. And so, not to take everything so seriously, to actually bring play into everything I do as much as I can.
As much as you can. In the chat, we also have you will never get anything you won't ask for. I love that. That is true. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Yes. Lorraine, what is yours?
I know I've been just thinking. I had a few moments to think as everyone was answering, but I think the one that stood out for me is the first person you lead is you. So just really leading first and modeling first what it is that you want in your life and that you want others to see, and being authentic with that.
Being authentic. That is absolutely right. Well, thank you for sharing. I love the ones that we have. People are repeating your all of your mantras. I am loving it. So let's just start with something easy. How were you introduced to coaching? What is your specialty area? Tell us about yourselves.
I was introduced to coaching by a sorority sister of mine. She was working with a credentialed coach, and we'll talk about that a little later. And around her finances and just creating a different relationship to money. And she kept raving about this coach. She would not leave me alone. So finally, I decided to have a conversation with him. And that coaching session, like it left me speechless. I couldn't believe how much I was able to accomplish in less than an hour. I hired him on the spot. And then he invited me to actually observe a coach training program. And I literally signed up that day and became a coach.
For me, when I started my coaching practice in 1990, there was no such thing as life coaching. There was consultants. And so when I started my life coaching practice, I did so because I'd been influenced by athletic coaches all my life. And I want to bring that principle into helping people in my consulting business. But my main focus was helping them to listen to their life. So the idea of life coaching for me was getting people to listen to their life, coaching them. And my job was to be a reflector, a mirror, so that they could listen to their lives and understand that they had the wisdom already within themselves. They just wasn't following it. So in 1990, I started. I was one of the first ones to start this whole thing about life coaching.
From my side, I kind of fell into it. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I kind of know what I wanted to achieve. And then when I found it, it was called coaching. So essentially, as an executive, I did a lot of mentoring and counseling, and I was always the one that everyone come to quite easily, and it was the most natural thing to do. But I wanted to find something whereby it could be more impactful. And I found that when I give people advice and they didn't take my advice and things didn't work out, that I would get upset. And I was like, this is not working. There has to be another way to really be more impactful and get them to do the work. And so I started my journey looking for this thing. And I found it in coaching. I started training at a coaching institute in London, and I traveled back and forth between Bermuda and London for a couple of years. And the first half an hour, I just got locked in. And I was like, this is it. The light bulbs went off. I just find it to be the most impactful gift that you can give someone, and the most transformational process of impacting someone for the long term.
For me, I just returned to Bermuda from qualifying as a lawyer, and was working in a law firm and was miserable, and my life was falling apart. I split up with my husband. My mother was diagnosed with a terminal illness. I was a single mom. I was working for a whole bunch of privileged white men who were calling each other white bread and boss across the room, and calling me girlfriend, which I didn't appreciate. And I ended up, and I'm actually my temperament and my personality is not a shark. I am artsy and gentle, and I went on an artist's retreat, and I never even heard of life coaching, but I met a singer-songwriter who had known me from a child. Can you hear me okay? And he said what he did, and he offered to support me through creating the life that I wanted. And I made some changes, and they were for the better. And actually, in that moment, I never thought I'd become a coach. And it wasn't until a few years later that an opportunity arose, and I took the leap. And I'm so glad that I did. So glad that I did.
So there's this wonderful story that you all are telling as far as you falling into coaching. But on our side, for the people out here who are watching and wondering, well, how do I know I need a coach? Can you give us some parameters or some guidelines to let us know, how can I tell I need a coach and not my pastor or my friend or a therapist?
That's a good question.
Really good question.
Yeah, I would say when you've gone as far as you can go by yourself.
That's right. When you've run out of options.
And I would even say, I'd venture to say, everyone needs a coach. Who doesn't need a coach? Who doesn't have a dream? Who doesn't get stuck? You know, who doesn't want to progress faster, further, with more vitality?
You know, I always say that a light bulb doesn't unscrew itself. You need somebody to unscrew the light bulb. Sometimes in our life, you know, we need a new mind, a renewed mind. So we need to somebody help us unscrew our light bulb and see things from a different perspective. And it opens up a new window of opportunities when you see things from a different perspective. Of course, there are millions of perspectives, but the right one can be dynamic in terms of how it changes the way you approach and see yourself. I would say anybody who has a negative view of themselves, you need to be in coaching immediately, because there's no way you're going to achieve the level of success that you want to if you have a negative view of yourself. You are fighting against yourself. You're going to be exhausted. You're going to be seeing how tired you are all the time. So a lot of people say all the time, I'm so tired. It's because you're fighting yourself, and you spend most of your time fighting yourself. So you need to have a coach just to stop that fighting, to bring that fight to an end.
I think that's such a good question. I'm thinking about, some of the reasons why people come to me. A big part of it is the feeling of being stuck, the feeling of they're tired. You said that earlier, and they're just tired, or they know that they want something different, but they don't know how to get there.
Exactly.
So those are a lot of the reasons. I think also because of the huge self-reflection that has occurred during the pandemic, there's a self-awareness that most people are coming into, where they've had an opportunity to reflect about, kind of hit the pause button for a moment to think about where they are, where they would like to be, and trying to figure out how to get there. And coaching is becoming a part of that solution and a part of that support.
I'd also add, so we've been talking about, some of on the side of like, this isn't how I want it to be, so I'm going to come to a coach and get supported. But I'll also invite you all to consider that it's adding to your abundance of support. So just like you, Shannon, you mentioned, your friend, like what's the difference between a coach and your friend? More than likely, if my friend comes to me with a problem, I'm probably not going to say what immediately comes to mind and what my intuition tells me to say. Why are you laughing, Jessica? I'm probably not going to say immediately what would come to mind, right? Our friends love us, our family members love us, but a coach stands on the outside and actually takes a look in and is willing to, I say a good coach is willing to actually say what there is to say. So it's not that our friends and our family members and counselors can't support us. I would just encourage you to consider that it's just adding more abundance to your bucket, your village.
Yeah. And and following that same suit, a lot of my clients, our ideal clients, are the ones that have said to themselves, there has to be more to life than this. And when they say there has to be more to life than this, what they are saying is there has to be more to me than this. And they are willing to discover more to themselves, to add to their abundance, to add to who they are, because they've reached because there's points in our life where we reach the apex. That doesn't mean that's all there is. It means that there's something on a higher level for you to reach for. And so, but some people interpret that as meaning that they fail. But we should always be reaching for a higher level throughout our entire lives. It's going to be a reoccurring thing, not just something that happens once in a lifetime.
There's something that I'm hearing here. It's something about not fixing. It doesn't sound like, can you all talk a little bit about how a coach deals with what someone is trying to reach? Because it doesn't sound like, whereas if I went to a therapist, I'm thinking they're going to fix this particular problem, but that's not why I come to a coach. Can you tell us a little bit more? Can you dig a little bit deeper around that?
For me, I don't work with changing people. I tell people from the get-go that there's nothing wrong with who you are. What I focus on is changing habits. Because until you're ready to change habits, you're not ready to change your condition. Most people spend all of their lives trying to fix themselves. They're like under construction all the time. I mean, they spend half of their life under construction. And that's so stressful, being under construction, because you don't give yourself a break. You're not compassionate. You're not forgiving. You're not loving up to yourself. So I create a shift to help them see the habits that they have in their lives. And we change the language. You are here to change your habits, not you.
I think that's such a really, really good question, because there's a misconception that everyone just sweeps coaching in. Oh, go to a coach, therapist, counselor, it's all in the same bag. And that is why a platform as such as this, and even the way that we do our discovery sessions and with individuals before they become our clients, is we really have to slow the process down and really explain to them what coaching is and what coaching is not, and getting them to understand that from a coach's perspective, we are looking at them as whole, complete, resourceful. They have the answers. They have everything that they need in order to achieve their goal. And our job is really just to partner with them and to support them to get there. And it's work. I've had sessions where after 45 minutes, my client was like, that was exhausting, but in a good way, in a really good way, because you're allowing them to really go deep and to create a space for them to really ask themselves some really sometimes very vulnerable questions. And it takes work, it takes time. And so I think that's a huge differential between coaching, is that the individual has to understand that they're going to do the work. They're going to own it. They're going to own it from the beginning. And what they achieve is theirs. It's not the coach. We're not vested in that. They're the ones that's vested in it. So I think that distinction is very important, that when they come to us, we don't see them as sick and, need fixing, etc. We're looking at them as whole, complete, and resourceful.
Definitely.
I know that it gets it gets confusing a lot out there on social media and out in the world, because you have shows that went viral and were very famous, like Fix My Life. I love Iyanla Vanzant, but that is not coaching. So we, like Lorene said, we don't relate to you as you need to be fixed or there's something to fix. Even the issue that you bring to us, we don't even relate to that as something that needs to be fixed. And we're relating to you, as Lorene said, perfect, whole, and complete. And you just want to get some shizzle done and move forward.
Right. When you said that about Iyanla, I wouldn't say that wasn't coaching. It was sensationalized for television. But she did a lot of good work, and she really got us to look at some things that was sometimes hard to look at. And I know, as when I have clients, I've had clients who I told them from the very beginning, you're not going to like me. I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to get you to where you want to go. And sometimes you have to say things to people that are not necessarily what they want to hear, but what they need to hear. You have to tell them in a way that is compelling. So, oftentimes it's not pretty. It's not a pretty thing. It's not all pretty, depending on where you're coming from, depending on where you start from. It's not always pretty. Can be when you get to a certain point. I've had clients that tell me that they hate me, and then at the end of the process say that they love me, because I was getting them to look at stuff that they had not looked at, that they needed to look at in order to get to the next level. You can't avoid the truth in this business. Because the number one problem I've found is that people struggle with being authentic across the board in their life. And wherever you're not being authentic is where you're having problems.
Would you say also that in addition to creating that truth and that space of honesty, that it really needs to be laced all through with that trust, that the client must feel that they can trust you in that safe space where they can have that tension of love and hate, between themselves and the coach, and know that you're not going anywhere. Like, the coach, we're there for that hour. We are there the whole time. And trust plays a huge part in creating that environment that can allow truth to really take its space and its place.
Yes, they say that you can say anything as long as you say it with love, right?
Yeah.
And I think, as coaches, we have we come and we stand for our clients' greatness. So they know whatever we're saying to them is coming from a place of holding them accountable and holding them to their greatness as the leader of their lives, as the expert of what they want. You can say anything if you say it with love. And obviously everybody has a different approach and everybody needs a different approach.
Definitely.
I'm wondering, this is so nice because everybody has said everyone can do this. Everyone needs this. People across the board, fill in the blank. And what I'm not hearing is white people do coaching because this, or Black people are in coaching because this. And I'm wondering if you could please talk to the idea that coaching is a white people thing, and how that can harm the Black community.
I'm going to take that one because I experienced it. So I'm coming from a corporate executive background, and what was typical was that the top 1%, who were generally white, was offered coaching as a reward, as a perk, as an investment in their future, career climb, etc. And that was not offered to Blacks. Additionally, it was not publicized. So it's not like it was in a manual or in the HR book, or it was discussed with your manager. Typically, you found out by chance. You started noticing that this other person, their hair looked different. They started to speak different. They're walking differently. Just things start to change, and then you find out that they're being coached. And that was my experience. That was my experience, and I saw how those individuals' career just took off by leaps and bounds. I mean, they literally just flew through the organization. And here I was pulling myself up by the bootstrap. Yes, I was getting some mentoring, but that wasn't enough. I needed more than that. And so that was a big part of my motivation, my personal motivation into getting into coaching, is because I really want to pop the lid off this thing. I don't want anyone to believe that it's only for that top 1%, or it's just only for that group of individuals, whatever that privileged group is in any organization. Most of the white executives that I spoke to, and certainly all the males, white executives, they were all given coaches. They were just given it. You're going to go to this level, you're going to be given an executive coach. It wasn't even a discussion, but that was not the case for Blacks and people of color. I want to change that trajectory. And I want Black leaders to understand that they don't have to be pulling themselves up by the bootstrap to prove anything to anybody. They don't have to work twice as hard. They can work smarter. And that with a coach in their toolkit, they have that support, they have that advocate, they have that ally. Because as you move up within an organization, it can become so lonely and so isolating, and you're trying to figure it out all by yourself. I think of my experience, and I just thought often, well, how much better could it have been if I had a coach alongside me that I could trust with all these things we're talking about, that I knew had my back and would even push me further. How much farther, Jessica, could I have gone? And so I don't want that to be the story for other Blacks and people of color. So in order to be a part of the solution, becoming a coach was my way of ensuring that this becomes a conversation, an open conversation, and that it is available and the language will change, and Blacks and people of color will start to ask for a coach if they're not given one, and they'll know what they're asking for, and they'll know what the request is. And so I'm really excited because most of the Black clients I have and people that speak to me have never been coached. They don't know what a coach is, and they don't know what the benefit of a coach is. And these are individuals that are arguably at the top of their game. And again, it saddens me because that means that they have done so much more work than they need to, and they could go even farther.
So from a different perspective, not so much in the corporate world, although I do coach internally in an organization. I think our Black people think when they say it's a white people thing, I think they're saying it's either woo woo or weird or weak or and when I've given practices to my clients, they've said to me that's white people stuff, and yet they have gone away. And I think of one client who wanted to work on her anger and her self-expression and composure at work. And I talked to her about the fact that anger is a very physical emotion, and that to get it out and to release it in a way that was safe for herself and for others in her career, she needed to get physical and speak at the same time. So I'm here telling her, get a piece of it, get a thing, and start
Yes.
expressing what you want to say. And she's like, that's white people stuff. And yet she went away, she got a bat or something like that. She made it her own, right? She took what I gave her and she made it her own, and it worked. So it may feel woo-woo, it's out of our comfort zone. We've been told what happens in the house stays in the house. We've been told Black people don't do therapy. We aren't used to being supported. We are used to having to be strong on our own. And so this, yeah, maybe if it's white people stuff, it's white people stuff because white people are used to having support. And why don't we deserve that?
Right.
Why can't that be ours as well?
That is so true. The other thing too is that we've been socialized to believe certain things, and the socialization is deep in our subconscious mind, and we think the things that we are doing are our choice, but it's a choice we have been socialized to believe is ours, right? But one of the things that we struggle with the most, and that we are working on now, is that we don't take feedback well. There's been a missing of feedback in our community. And the reason why there's been a missing of feedback is because we haven't wanted to measure. I remember when I first started doing social justice work and bringing life coaching to social justice, there was no conversation at all about measuring outcomes, none. So if you are afraid to measure outcomes, you are also afraid of feedback. So coaching is a feedback situation. And when until you're ready to accept feedback, you're not ready to grow, because that's what feedback is for. It's to feed you. The feed comes back to feed you so you can grow. So, but it's a socialization thing. And now more than ever, I see more people of color coming to this in droves, which is beautiful, because that means we are outgrowing the socialization that says that we have to go to church to get this, and church is not the only place to get this. In fact, church has been set up in a way where there's no feedback in church. So the pastor doesn't get feedback. He preaches, but he don't get feedback. See, when I first started, I came from the church tradition. So I was used to talking to people like in a speech. And the universe said, that's enough of that. You got to put yourself in a position to facilitate and get feedback from people. That people could stop you and ask you questions, because I wasn't growing, because you could always give good speeches. You think you're doing a good job, but nobody's asking you no questions. when people are able to ask you questions and you start realizing, wait a minute, I don't know this like I thought I knew it, right? Then you got to do some work. So putting ourselves in a position to give feedback will help our community grow in ways that we can't even imagine. And I see it happening more than ever before, really. People are coming to this, you know.
In that, as we continue in this realm of questioning, can coaching be used to combat or repair the trauma experienced by the Black community? Is coaching something that can do that?
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. You know, I've worked with over 500,000 people, right? In coaching, group coaching capacities, one-on-one. I've been doing this for a long time, a lot of years, right? And I've seen our technology improve. Because when I first started, I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I just knew I wanted to do something different, you know? And what I was driven by was I had an experience as a child where me and my two younger brothers were being put in foster care because my mom and my dad had both abandoned us. And I felt utterly powerless. And I said to myself, I will never feel this again. So the drive for power became so real for me, and not in the power over people, but power over my life. Mm-hmm. And it showed up in so many different ways. So it fed my drive to learn, because I always wanted to be the one who was in charge. Because I didn't want to be in that situation again where somebody could just drop me and I experienced total and utter rejection again. So I was driven by that. And so it has caused me to study and search for answers that the average person would not be looking for. And so what I found was that the key to power is us getting back to what I consider the oldest philosophy known to man. And that is the philosophy of the uninterrupted self. When we are not interrupting ourselves anymore, we walk in our own power. We've been living in the philosophy of the interrupted self, where we're constantly interrupting ourselves, which prevents us from getting in the zone, prevents us from getting in the flow, prevents us from discovering what our strengths and our powers are. So that drove me to that. And I start seeing outcomes, people getting to what they really getting to themselves, catching up with themselves, and loving the fact that they caught up with themselves. That's all we got to do. We got to catch up with ourselves. When you interrupt yourself, you fall behind yourself, right? And the world distracts you, makes you look at everybody else, but who you need to catch up with is you.
Powerful. That is so powerful.
Yes. And what I hear from that is when you interrupt yourself, you are not free. Right?
Exactly.
To me, it's all about freedom. And when you interrupt yourself, you're not free. And ultimately, we're not going to be well. We're not going to be wealthy. We're not going to be empowered. We are not going to be empowered over our lives until we're free.
So true. So true.
Thank you, by the way, for sharing that piece of your life with us. And I would like to open the floor. It's been open, but I'd like to invite all of you to just, if there is a spot in your life where you wish that you could have worked with a coach, I would love to hear those experiences.
I have a list, but I'll start with when I was younger. I grew up in South Central Los Angeles, and everything around me said, you cannot, you can't, you can't, you can't, you can't, you can't. So much so that I begged my mother to let me go to this high school that was known to be one of the worst high schools in the area. But I wanted to go to that high school because there was a principal coming whose philosophy was, yes, you can and you will. And so I just think about, our youth, our young adults, how powerful it could be if they actually related to coaching as normal. Like they are actually introduced to that philosophy of, yes, you can. Not only can you, you will, and I'm going to be right there to support you. That would have made a huge difference in my life. I'm grateful that I got it along the way, but I just wonder, how much more powerful I could have been sooner. How much more freedom I could have had. Thank you, Jessica, for that. Sooner, earlier, younger.
And fun.
And fun.
Yes.
Fun. And not relating to myself, like you said before, Lorene, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Everything has to be hard and grinding.
Right.
And I mean, that's a narrative that we've been sold as a people. So imagine if young people had this thing called coaching. I don't care. You can call it something else if you want to, but had this thing, this philosophy that actually says, yes, I believe in myself and I'm not by myself. I have a community of support.
Right.
Yeah. It would have made a huge difference.
For me, it was my relationships with women. I wish I would have gotten a coach earlier in life because my mother and father had abandoned them. Me and my brothers, I never grew up seeing a healthy relationship between a man and woman. And so I remember when I was in college, went to spend a weekend with one of my roommates. I played college football. I was one of those college stars, and we both were stars on the team. So I went to spend a weekend at his house, and then it was a holiday weekend. And we sitting down watching television that Saturday morning, and his dad comes down the steps, walks into the kitchen, and he pats his wife, his mother, on the behind and gives her a kiss. And I was like, what the hell is going on here, right? I'm looking at this, and I swear to you, in my mind, I said, they are just putting on airs for company. Because I had never seen it. I didn't know what that was. And then the next morning, he came down again, did the same thing, gave her a big old kiss and said, baby, I'm going to talk to you later. I was like, what? It was like a whole new world. It was then I realized that I needed help, but I didn't seek out the help then, not in a coach capacity, but I've always attracted older people who became mentors to me. I was always that child that was like, I'm seeking out knowledge because I wanted power. I wanted to have charge of my life. So that kept me going to people. So in every place I went in, I had at least 2 or 3 mentors all my life. But I at first I wasn't brave enough to talk about relationships because, it's the thing where as a man, you act like you know what you're doing. You act like you know what's going on. And so it took me a while to come clean about that reality, that I know what I was doing. And I was actually emotionally sort of backwards, because I learned to close up so much because to protect myself, and I had to learn how to open up. So I had to get coaching around that. A lot of coaching. Still getting coaching now.
Yeah.
Would you like to share?
Yes, I'm actually thinking, it's funny now, it's like now you have this awakening, you look back and you're like, man, I could have used it here and it would have been great here. I could have used it in university and when I was making these career decisions and you have these conversations with yourself and you said, self, do you think that's the right decision? And self says, yeah, go for it. I just felt that there are just so many junctures in certainly in my career and as I was building my family and managing work life. Both my husband and I, he's in the IT space, raising 3 kids and in very demanding jobs. There were times in juncture where I was either stuck or I'd run out of options. And I honestly didn't know where to go. And looking back now, I can see where had I been aware of coaching, I probably would look 10 years younger than I do now. So yeah, I can think of many occasions, many. But I know better now.
All of you have basically said that there was a moment that sparked something. It wasn't necessarily coaching. It was, I need help, or it sounds like that. I need help. And I'm wondering what it is that we can do to advance coaching in the Black community. How do we let people know that I need help equals coaching?
I think what we're doing now, this kind of stuff needs to continue. We need to keep talking about it in a positive light and embracing it in front of people. And I think we are about to hit that critical mass level where we just start flooding the but the problem that still remains is the value people put to it. Because people want you to do stuff for free.
Oh, yes.
And that's the problem with this, right?
Yes.
And it's problematic because you are investing in yourself, and you can't wait for the government to give you a grant to do this work. So there's a lot of people waiting for grants to do this work. You have to invest in yourself. You have to understand too that the minute you invest in the intention is manifesting. The minute you invest in it, right? So I remember one of the first times I got a coach and I had to pay a substantial amount of money for the coach. And when they said how much money to work with Tony Robbins, right? When they said how much money was going to cost, I was like, oh shit, I ain't got that kind of money. And then the next day, the universe made it happen where somebody I worked with before, one of my other clients, donated the money to me because his wife had passed. I coached both of them in a couple's capacity, and his wife had passed she had a disease, chronic disease that she passed from. And when she died, she put in a will to donate a certain amount of money to me. And it was the exact amount of money it was going to cost for me to go to do the coaching. It was, when I say it was down to the dime. So when he told me that, I was like, the universe was like, oh, what excuse you got now? So I transferred the check that he gave me straight to the Tony Robbins Institute, right? To go through coaching. Because now let me tell you something, the minute I invested in that, my whole career blew up. Because it wasn't necessarily the coaching more than it was me initiating faith in my own intention that just blew it up. From that point on, I mean, it was some good coaching, but a lot of stuff I knew already. That's what coaching gonna help you to see, that you know a lot of stuff already. You're just not putting it into action. You don't have the right habits. So they helped me develop the habits I needed to be able to keep moving up,
Mm-hmm.
I would also add, so I really appreciate you saying that, Brother M, to keep conversations like this alive, like this becomes our normal. So it's not something that's set aside for white people and other cultures, but this becomes part of our normal. So to continue to keep the conversation alive. And I just heard, for us, by us, for us, by us, creating coach training schools that are led and owned by Black people, so that Black people can have the conversations with those participants, those students, about the benefits of coaching. Having it be in our community centers, like I talked about earlier, making sure that our youth understand the benefits and the value of coaching, to actually literally raise the bar, raise the conversation around coaching. And I agree with you, Brother M. I feel like that is happening more now. And I still feel like there's still a huge gap that we need to fill. I read a statistic the other day that said something like coaching generated $18 billion. $18 billion. $18 billion. And if you look for statistics about how many Black certified and credentialed coaches there are, it's a real small number. It's a drop in the bucket. So who are these Black people who are experiencing coaching? Who are they going to? They're probably not going to people who look like them.
No, they're not.
No,
they're not.
Can you, Sophia, follow that trail a little deeper and just let us know what the biggest challenge in the coaching industry is at the moment?
Well, I promise not to get too heavily on my soapbox, but my colleagues know I love to talk about this. One of the things I think is one of the biggest gaps in the coaching industry is the lack of certification and credentialing, the lack of knowledge about what coaching is and what it isn't, the lack of knowledge around positive psychology, like all this stuff that, other cultures used to probably enslave us, but that's another story for another time. Like, we need to know that. We need to understand it and use it in a way that's going to support us. So I believe that one of the biggest things, like I said, is a lack of professionalization of coaching. So I'm a big stickler for certification and credentialing. I have mentored, I think I'm up to 100 and something coaches in the last couple of years, because I'm so passionate about this work and about making sure that we as Black people professionalize this industry for us and in a way that speaks to us.
Right.
In a way that speaks to us. One of the largest, well, actually the largest, and some people say the only governing body for credential coaches is called the International Coach Federation. When I look at their board of directors, when I look at the top management folks, their leaders, there aren't a lot of us.
Right. And I would, tag along with what Sophia just said. And I would also add to that is that a lot of the technology they're using does not speak to our experience. I have coached so many certified coaches because they didn't know what they were doing, because, applying it to the experiences that we've had is different. We're coming from a different reality. And you can't ignore the reality we're coming from, because that's what the society has done for a long time. It is, it's gaslighting us, made us believe that we were crazy, that what we experienced wasn't our experience. So so the technology you use has to speak to the root of who we are as a people to bring us out from that. So it has to be coaching that's socially and spiritually conscious. Can't just be coaching that's material based. The idea of you're going after some house and career. It has to be spiritually and socially based, consciously, and I think those consciousness needs to be integrated together. Mm-hmm. And when I say integrated, that's one of the reasons why I call my practice soul focused, because when you integrate social and spiritual consciousness, you become soul focused. And all that means is that when we say social, we're talking about the relationship we share with other people. When we say spiritual, we're talking about the relationship you share with yourself. And you have to be able to accept responsibility for both the impact you're having on yourself and the impact you're having on others. And when people take on that responsibility, they start awakening to their power in both of those arenas. But our base of knowledge has to be different from theirs, slightly different. Some of the same stuff, but speaking to our experiences are different from the experiences of white people.
Yes. So what you're saying, and Sophia said this sentence in a way that speaks to us. Like this is really important, and it's a nice little segue to talking about Lorene, and you're writing a book about coaching. Is that correct? And if that's true, I feel like you're doing exactly that, right? You're talking about coaching in a way that speaks to us. Can you talk more about that?
Yes, thank you. It's going to be Jessica and I, so I'm really excited. Jessica and I are working on this book together. It's really exciting because we're touching on everything that we're just talking about, and it's about educating and dispelling the myths around coaching and making it a part of our vernacular, normal way of speaking, normal requests, knowing what it is and knowing what we're asking for. And also, in the book, we're going to be sharing real stories about some of our clients who are Black and people of color, sharing some of the things that have brought them to coaching and how coaching has really impacted and improved their lives. So I just think that this just ties in perfectly, and it just affirms what we're all saying. What we're all saying here is that a part of changing the dialogue is educating, and it's also awareness and exposure. Jess, do you want to add anything, Jess?
I would just, what would I like to add? I think one of the things that
Jessica, I'm so sorry. I just want to make sure that you mic is at the top level that it can be. So if you could either get closer, we want to hear everything you have to say.
Yes, my soft-spoken self. I'm going to try and project.
They kissed the
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I think one of the cases that we're making in the book is that, yes, we know that as people of color and as Black people, we are resilient, but we can be so much more resilient, and we need to be resilient, especially in spaces that are hostile. But just this world is a racist world. And so understanding that we have the tools that can help us to not just survive, because I think most of us have been stuck on survive in most spaces for a long time, but we have access to be able to thrive. So we're giving people tools and new ways of thinking and being so that we can thrive, because that is what we deserve.
I'm wondering, can both of you, and all of you as well, but can you talk a little bit about what some results that you've helped your clients achieve, things that stick out in your mind?
Save their marriage. Save their lives. I've had clients who are about to commit suicide, and I've had to apply what I know to really to wake them up, to take the gun from away from their head on the spot, to be able to capture their attention and to speak to the spirit within them to move them away from that moment. I've had situations like that where people were about to be evicted from their homes because they wouldn't tell the truth, right? And having them to be able to have enough faith in themselves to come clean, you know? So I could give you scenarios over and over again, saving their career, going up to the next level in their career, you know? So you name it, you name the scenario, I've probably experienced it in terms of helping people get results.
I'm thinking of one right now. I'm working with a client right now, 45-year-old male, never been coached, Black male, brilliant mathematician, by all counts is doing very well. He came to coaching because he saw something I wrote on LinkedIn, and he inquired, what is coaching? And so we set up a call and we talked about it, and he said, yeah, that's what I need. That's what I'm looking for. And in our first session, I think what just, it was, you know, when you have the aha moments, but you're getting the aha too, because you're like, oh my goodness, because you have no idea what's coming. Like, you don't know what's coming. And basically he discovered through the coaching that he had been running the wrong race. He'd been trailing down the wrong track and behaving counter to where he wants to be. And the sadness he felt that he had been doing that for 10 years. He's been doing that for 10 years and had been told that he was very successful. And he said, it's not going to happen anymore. I have 15 years to get there, because he wants to get into the C-suite. So it's moments like that that just, I can't describe it. I just can't describe it. It's pivotal. It's life-changing. It is, you can see hope return in their faces. People start to explore what success looks like for them, what matters for them, what are my values. You know, I use this, you know, what do you want, what you really, really want? You know, the Spice Girl, what you really want, what you really, really want. You know, because oftentimes they come to you with something they want, and then they find out that halfway through what they really, really, really want has nothing to do with what they started out with. And just to see the transformation unfold in front of you, the next session, they're just bright and hopeful. And hope is a big thing. Hope is huge. So yeah, that's just one example, but yeah.
I could share about 15 million examples, I'm sure. And to Lorene's point, this work can become addictive. Actually witnessing, yeah, I know, Brother M, you're already there, right? I'm like, right here. Witnessing and being a part of someone creating their lives differently because they say so. It's addictive. And so just like, you know, Brother M said, and Lorene said, we could give you 50 million examples, because every single person that we've worked with, every single client that we've had the luxury of working with has created some type of shift in their lives.
Yes.
I'm going out on a limb by saying that for all of us. I really do believe
that's the beauty of this work.
Yes. And that's why I say it's so addictive. One of the clients that I want to highlight. I actually just got hired recently by an executive who's responsible for the leadership for the American Civil Liberties Union. I'm like, what? Black person. And, you know, as we talked about types of things we were going to work on or that they wanted to really focus on, it wasn't so much the work of the ACLU. It was about how do I create more connection and a deeper level of connection with my team, with the people who actually have to deal with this stuff, all the social injustice, day in and day out. How do I navigate that? How do I support them so that they can navigate that in the middle of a pandemic? And so, I mean, like I said, this work can be so addictive because, to Lorene's point, not only do our clients get a lot of value, we have the opportunity to grow too, just from being a part, right? Right?
Yeah.
We get an opportunity to grow too. And I didn't expect that coming into coaching because I was a trainer. And so I came from an HR background. So I was like, okay, sign me up for coaching. I'm going to tell people what to do. I'm good at that. Ask my husband. But it is completely different. Coaches we don't tell people what to do. We support people in having what they say they want.
You know, one of the biggest things that I discovered in my learning and being a life coach all these years is how much people lie.
Lie to themselves.
Yeah, they don't even know they're lying.
And
They
listen,
don't know they're lying. They don't know.
No, and the reason why I say that is because for years I would believe the pretending that people would do. And after hearing the same stories over and over again of people pretending, I learned, it was my epiphany was I learned to talk straight to the reality of people because I knew when people were making stuff up. It has a pattern. So one of the biggest outcomes I've been able to help people achieve is let go of the pretending and show up as themselves. That's because I work with clients who are filthy rich, miserable. Because having material success in this world, believe it or not, is easy once you understand the pattern. But having happiness with that is not. So happiness is one of those big outcomes.
I'm wondering, we have this question in the chat, and it is, how can coaching help Black people beyond the individual achievement? Can you speak more on group coaching for collective outcomes?
It's powerful work. It's powerful work. I'm a part of an organization where we created an initiative to offer pro bono coaching, and we call it pro bono because I say nothing's free but God's love. So to offer pro bono coaching, like to the world. And that is something that any community could start. It doesn't take much at all. Have some coaches who are committed to the work. And at the same time, I believe there's value in having people attach money to their investment. I mean, actually invest by attaching money to it. It creates commitment, in my opinion. But yes, I feel like, in terms of the community, it would be relatively easy for us to do it, just to create it as an organization, do group coaching, do team coaching, go into nonprofits and support the leadership of the nonprofit around moving their goals forward. Support them around having clearer communication with each other. So I believe it's definitely possible. And one of the things I do in my practice, I will always, 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 always have at least one of my executive coaching slots offered as a pro bono slot or a sliding scale slot. So let's imagine that I charge normally $7,500 a month to coach an executive. Someone could come and actually get that same level of coaching and pay nothing. And we're going to coach that person and give that person the same quality of coaching as that executive who paid $7,500.
Right.
Yeah.
Another way is that they can organize among themselves pull their resources together and put together a group. I've had women and men who have organized themselves together and have come to me to do group coaching for the collective. And when that happens, I've always been willing to sometimes reduce my fee to work with them collectively. And I'm gonna tell you why. There's an advantage with collective coaching. You will get to outcomes faster because of the collective experience when people are being honest. Sometimes I kind of hesitate when a new individual client comes to me, because even though I charge a lot of money, it's going to take up a lot of my time. I would rather put that time in a group because I could reach more people at one time. But the way people normally do it is they pool their resources and they say, well, look, I would like for you to coach me. And, but I tell them this. So they say they don't have no money. I said, well, go find 10 people, go find 5 people, pool your resources together and let's do it, because it would be the same thing as me dealing with one person who may be paying me $10,000. And here we are doing a group, maybe a group of 10 for that, because I know they, don't have the money in terms of individually. So there's always a will. Where there's a will, there's a way. You don't let anything get in the way of what you want, because we're living in a socially constructed world. Is really not even real. It's a socially constructed world. And when you understand it's a socially constructed world and you can construct it the way you want to, man, the opportunities that open up, but you got to get past that fear of what you've been socialized to believe, that you can't change this. This stuff is very, very, very changeable.
That's why, they're not advertising in our neighborhoods.
No.
Coach training schools are not advertising in our neighborhoods, except for the ones that I work with. They're not advertising in our neighborhoods. So can you imagine that if we made it accessible to every woman and man, every child, every youth, and how do I see your question? How powerful that could be. That could literally shift our communities.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention about, just supporting the community and making a part of making coaching, normalizing coaching and creating exposure to the everyday normal person is looking for opportunities like these to coach in a group. So I do I sit on the board of a nonprofit. It's a board for elderly home here in Bermuda. And they've gone through a very difficult time with the pandemic, and they continue to go through a very stressful time. So, when most of us just have to worry about ourselves, they have to worry about themselves and their patients or the clients. And when they go home, they generally are home on their own because they cannot be exposed to anyone. So it's very isolating, and it can be extremely stressful. And so I've been providing pro bono group coaching to all of the staff there. And it's virtual, so I haven't met them before. But it's been so rewarding to be able to support them and for them to be exposed to coaching and to help them as a team to solve some of their own challenges and to find new ways of being and new ways of showing up for their clients and more importantly for themselves. So that's the first opportunity I've had, I guess, since the pandemic to be able to do something like this at the grassroots level. And so now they're actually spreading the word, Jess, to the different elderly home around the island to say, okay, when we're done, you need to do the same thing that we're doing. So I'm really excited about just the opportunity to bring this in to people who ordinarily would never have access to it.
So we've been, please, Jessica.
Yeah, I was just thinking, so if you know me, you know that my vision and my goal in life is to have coaching conversations everywhere. Not just me, but everybody being coached and having a coach. I think we can change the world that way. In Scandinavia, I think in Denmark, they have a policy of health in every policy, right? So when they're creating any regulation or any policy, they have to ensure that there is health included in that. And I feel like that's what we can do in terms of coaching. I want to see coaching in every conversation. coaching is conversation. Coaching is being in conversation. It can happen on the micro level, one-on-one, and it can happen on the team level and the group level. Wherever there are two people having this conversation, there is team. And wherever there is a group or a team, there is opportunity for a coaching conversation. As coaches, we need to show up as coach and have those conversations as much as possible. That is how we're going to expose our community to coaching. And it can happen everywhere. We don't have to form anything. There's teams, there's groups everywhere. We're elevating the conversation. We're having a strategic conversation one-on-one. We're having a strategic conversation and a conversation around possibility, and not is it possible, but how are we going to get there? And to me, it's about elevating the conversation one-on-one, in groups, everywhere. Pro bono, for money, I don't care. Let's just keep on elevating the conversation.
And in that vein, in that spirit of elevating the conversation in groups, I'm wondering if Sophia and the rest of you, can you show us what a coaching session might look like, a demonstration, if you will, so that people can, have their guards down a little bit, have an understanding of what they might be getting into?
Absolutely. Before I do that, I just wanted to make sure I addressed Hadi's question about how can we make coaching more accessible and attractive to the youth. So I think we've already talked about the accessibility side of it, but how we can make it more attractive to youth is to actually engage. Like Jessica said, coaching is communication, actually having conversations with the youth and finding out what's important to them. Imagine, somebody who's 16, their goal is, I want to be the top TikTok person. I'm still learning the whole TikTok thing. I want to have 50,000 views, whatever that is. That's a goal. That's what he just named. He named a goal. Imagine another teenager wants to actually create a business in their community that addresses some issue in their community. That's a goal. So I think it just starts with conversation and finding out what's important to our youth and actually speaking their language too. Speaking their language so they can actually hear it.
And listening, right? Because the best conversations happen with just showing up and shutting up, right? Show up, shut up with love. Right?
That's a tweetable right there. Show up and shut up.
I remind myself that with my 18-year-old daughter. I think she wishes I'd just show up and shut up sometimes.
All right, so let's see. So if you're ready, Sophia, to guide us through what a coaching session might look like, we would love to see that.
Okay, and we're just going to do just a few minutes, and I want you to pay attention to the types of questions that I ask as a coach, and pay attention to. I'll leave it at that. So, Lorene, are you willing to do a little practice coaching with me?
Absolutely.
Hey, Lorene, great to see you. I'm so glad to work with you. It's an honor to work with you. What's your coaching request for today? How can I support you?
So it's been a busy year, and all of us have been working from home, and this work-life balance thing has gone crazy. And I guess now we're kind of on the other side of things. I would like to start carving out some more time for my husband and I to spend together. So our boys are much older now. The youngest is 20 and the oldest is 25. The other one's 22. So we're getting some time back. Yay. So, but he also started a fairly new job. So, he's burning the midnight oil, so to speak. And I started my own business. So we're both ramping up. But I've just been noticing of late that there's just been a lot of work and not as much fun. That balance isn't quite there. So I'd like to change that.
So what I heard you say is, in this session, where you would like support is to actually create ways for you and your husband to deepen your connection and time spent together, even during this pandemic. Am I on track with that?
That's correct. Absolutely.
Cool. I'm happy to support you around that. I noticed that when I asked you that question, what was your coaching request and what you wanted support around today, Lorraine, I noticed a big, heavy sigh. And I even noticed your body language. Am I on track with that, or am I making that up?
No, that's a very good observation. Yes.
If you had to put words to that sigh, if that sigh could actually speak, what would it say?
It's time for a change. It's been going on for a while. Yeah.
It's time for a change.
Yeah.
In our work together today, we have just a few minutes left. What would you like to walk away from this conversation having be in place?
I would like to be able to at least identify one activity or something fun that both my husband and I could do together. It can be something we've done before, or it can be something new that we do once a week. It doesn't have to be anything big, but just intentional. Yeah.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah.
How do you define fun? I want to make sure that I understand your definition, because my definition could be swinging from a chandelier. I mean, I want to make sure that I understand your definition.
That's a great question. You know, I think prior to the pandemic, I would have had a different definition of fun, because who wouldn't want to be home, hanging out at home and having all this time at home? But I would say, having gone through the pandemic, it's being outdoors, doing fun things outside, going for a drive, playing tennis, going for a walk, but doing it together, not, you know, on each of us doing our own activity, but really doing it together as a couple, and being outside. We've been inside for a long time. So yeah, being outside would be fun.
I appreciate you sharing that. And if you created for your life fun, with the definition of fun being spending more time outdoors and getting some good vitamin D, what would be possible for your life?
Oh, creativity, innovation. When I'm outside and in nature, I'm far more creative. I come up with great ideas. I love to write, so I could see writing more, laughing more, you know, getting away from the television and having conversations. My husband and I are really good friends. We're great friends, besides husband and wife, but like we can hang, you know. And you know, we haven't been able to go to the movies and all the things that we used to do. And so it's finding a new space perhaps, where we can reconnect and play into that friendship that is a big part of who we are. Yeah.
Well, I noticed that you shared a few things, and as you were sharing them, your face lit up, you started to show more teeth. Your shoulders were much further down than when we started, when they were up here. What are some of those things that you mentioned?
Yeah, I started to remember, it's weird, not weird, but I started to remember why I love my husband so much. And it's because we're such great friends. He is just, I could be mad at my husband, like really, really mad as a husband, and we can still hang out. Because I'm like, just park that, you know, it's all right. Yeah, I guess I was reminded that the friendship is a huge part. And if that is allowed to be, if that goes away or it's diminished, you know, it could really threaten the vibrancy and the health of our relationship. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to stop right there. Thank you, Lorraine. That was so good. Now, I'm going to talk to you about the chandelier. Great. Thank you.
This has been amazing. Thank you for doing exactly that. I put some things in the chat so that there's some things that you said, Coach Sophia, that were obviously things that we want people who are listening to us to say.
Yes.
And it was it was interesting to hear. So I just put those as indicators, and I'm sure that there are words, there are special coaching words for what you said. And the thing is that we are going to wrap up here. I want to tell everybody that if you enjoyed this, that we do have Next to Wisdom, Wellness, and Wealth event. We have another one coming up on Wednesday, September 15th at 7 p.m. And the topic is Turn Your Craft into Cash, how to start selling your handcraft products. And this, I just hope that this has been inspiring for you, the viewer, to go ahead, ask the question, what do I need help with? And then answer that question by getting a coach. And those coaches are right here in front of you. I want to thank Sophia, Lorene, Jessica, and M for this impactful discussion, and to Ikrama Mohammed and Karen Freeman for gathering us together through the PEACES Collective. What we are going to do now, this is the exciting part, is we're going to return to the setting that we all came in on. And we are going to have Sophia at table 3, M at table 5, Jessica at table 6, and Lorene at another table that will be announced. And because of that, you, the viewer, will be able to join those tables and ask M and Jessica and Lorene and Sophia questions that were not answered here. So I'm really excited to let you loose and have them talk to you. But for now, we will return to the conference room where you'll be able to find them at tables. And I want to thank all of you for being here today, you in the audience and all of you panelists. Thank you for joining us at the PEACES Collective.